My name is Alex. I'm 30 years old. My life was calm and happy. I had a good job, a loving girlfriend named Sarah, and we lived in a small but cozy apartment in the city. Everything seemed perfect. But then, everything changed. I met Sarah 5 years ago. She was different from anyone I'd ever known. She was kind, smart, and always knew how to make me laugh. We spent a lot of time together, and soon we became a couple. We were happy, really happy. One day, Sarah told me we were going to visit her parents. "They're excited to meet you," she said, smiling. "It's going to be fun." Her parents, David and Laura, lived outside the city in a large house. Sarah spoke of them often, but there was something strange in her voice when she mentioned her mother. "Mom's a little different," she'd say, "but she'll warm up to you." I didn't think much of it at first. I was excited but nervous. Meeting the parents is always a big step in a relationship, right? The drive to their house was long. The trees along the road seemed darker than usual, and the air felt thick. We finally arrived, and I could feel my heart beat faster. David greeted me warmly. "Alex, it's so nice to meet you," he said, shaking my hand. Laura was a little more reserved, but she smiled. "Welcome to our home." The house was large, but quiet. The walls were filled with old paintings and the furniture was antique. It felt like stepping into another time. Sarah led me upstairs, where we settled in the guest room. That night, dinner was strange. Laura barely spoke, and David asked me too many questions about my job, my family, my life. It felt like an interview, not a dinner. After a while, I couldn't ignore the feeling that something was wrong. After dinner, Sarah and I went for a walk around the property. The sky was dark, and the trees looked like shadows reaching out to grab us. "Something's not right here, isn't it?" I asked Sarah quietly. She looked at me with wide eyes. "No, it's just the house is old. It makes you feel like that." But I couldn't shake the feeling. I felt like I was being watched. The next morning, I woke up early. Sarah was still asleep, and I decided to take a walk around the grounds to clear my head. The air was cool, and the grass felt wet beneath my feet. I walked past the garden and toward a small shed at the edge of the property. It was old, covered in vines, and looked like it hadn't been touched in years. I felt drawn to it. I didn't know why. It was as if something was calling me. I approached the shed slowly. My hand reached for the door, and I hesitated. But curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. Inside, it was dark, and the smell of old wood filled the air. I couldn't see much at first, but then my eyes adjusted. There, on the floor, was a box. It was old, with dust all over it. I bent down and opened it. Inside were old photographs. I picked one up. It was a picture of Sarah when she was younger, with two people standing beside her. They were smiling, but there was something about their eyes. They didn't look like they were happy. I quickly put the photograph down and stood up, feeling uneasy. Just then, I heard a voice behind me. "Alex, what are you doing?" I turned around, and there stood Sarah. Her face was pale, and her eyes were wide. I just found this box," I said, trying to explain. "What is this? Why are these people in the photo?" But she didn't answer. She just stared at me. Suddenly, I heard footsteps. I turned and saw her father, David, walking toward us. His face was calm, but there was something in his eyes that sent a chill down my spine. "You shouldn't be here," he said softly, his voice cold. "This place holds memories you don't need to know." I tried to speak, but my mouth went dry. The air felt so tiny, and yet "Alex," Sarah said in a whisper, stepping toward me. "We need to leave, now." But it was too late. David grabbed my arm, his grip strong. "You should have never come here." I pulled away, heart racing. "Let me go." But as I turned to run, the door to the shed slammed shut behind me. I ran back toward the house, my heart pounding in my chest. The air felt thick, as if it was closing in on me. I could hear footsteps behind me, but I didn't dare look back. All I knew was that I had to get away from that shed, from the house, from Sarah's parents. Something was horribly wrong. I burst through the door of the house and slammed it shut behind me, gasping for breath. My eyes darted around the room, searching for Sarah, but she wasn't there. "Sarah?" I called out, my voice trembling. No answer. I moved through the house, my feet feeling heavy, like I was walking through mud. The place seemed so quiet, too quiet. The walls were suffocating, closing in around me. I could hear the echo of my own footsteps, and the tension in the air was almost unbearable. Then I heard a voice. It was soft, almost a whisper, but it was unmistakable. "Sarah," I called. I heard a voice. I froze. It was Sarah's voice, but it didn't sound right. It wasn't warm like before. It was distant. "Sarah?" I whispered, feeling a cold shiver run down my spine. I turned toward the source of the voice, and there she was, standing at the top of the stairs, her back to me. "Sarah!" I called, running toward her, but as I approached, she didn't turn around. She didn't even move. I stopped just a few steps away from her. "Sarah, what's going on? Why are you acting like this? What did your father mean, saying I shouldn't be here? What did he mean by those words?" She still didn't answer. My mind raced, but all I could do was stare at her, waiting for her to turn around. I was desperate for an explanation, for any sign of the girl I thought I knew. But there was nothing. I reached out, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Sarah." My voice cracked. "What's happening?" She turned slowly, her eyes empty, emotionless. And in that moment I knew something was terribly wrong. Her once bright eyes were now dark, cold, like the eyes of a stranger. She didn't look like the woman I loved. She looked like something else. "I told you, Alex," she said in a hollow voice. "You shouldn't have come here." My heart skipped a beat. The chill in her voice froze me in place. "What do you mean?" I whispered, stepping back, my pulse racing. "What are you saying, Sarah?" "I didn't want you to know the truth," she said, her voice now sharp, biting. "But now that you've seen too much, you can't leave." I took another step back, my breath coming in quick, shallow gasps. I had to get out of there. I had to run. But before I could move, David appeared at the bottom of the stairs. His eyes dark with anger. His presence was suffocating, like the weight of the world had suddenly fallen on me. "You should have listened," he said, his voice calm but full of menace. "Now, there's no way out for you." I turned to run, but Laura appeared at the door, blocking my escape. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with an unnatural intensity. There was something cold and cruel in her smile. "Where do you think you're going?" she asked, her voice sweet but twisted. My blood ran cold. I was trapped. There was nowhere to go. "Sarah, please," I begged, turning back to her. "Please, tell me what's going on. Why are they doing this? What do they want from me?" Sarah stepped closer to me, her face twisted in something between a smile and a grimace. "They don't want anything from you, Alex. You were just in the wrong place at the wrong time." I tried to move, but David stepped forward, blocking me. His grip was strong, and he held me in place with ease. "You see, Alex," he said, his voice low, "this family has lived for centuries, and we've learned ways to extend our lives, ways to stay young, and we don't like our secrets getting out." My heart hammered in my chest. What was he saying? Extending their lives? How? "What are you talking about?" I gasped. "What does this have to do with me?" Laura smiled again, her eyes gleaming with an unsettling light. "You're special, Alex. You were chosen. You're part of the plan." I shook my head, not understanding. "Chosen? What plan? What are you going to do with me?" David didn't answer immediately. He just stared at me, his eyes cold and calculating. "You're going to help us. You're going to make sure the family secret is never exposed." "By doing what?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "By what, killing me?" David didn't answer. Instead, he motioned to Sarah. She stepped forward, her eyes still empty, still cold. But there was something else there, something dark and powerful, Suddenly, everything clicked into place. Sarah wasn't just acting strange. She wasn't just distant. She was part of it. She had always been part of it. Her family's power and their experiments, they were using her, using everyone around them to keep their secret hidden. And now I was part of it too. Before I could react, David spoke again, his voice calm. "You'll help us, Alex. You have no choice." I tried to break free, but his grip was too strong. I was trapped. "Please," I begged. "Please, don't do this. I don't want to be part of whatever this is." But David just smiled, his eyes cold and unfeeling. "It's too late for that, Alex. You've already seen too much. Now you'll become part of the family's legacy." I looked at Sarah one last time, hoping for a sign of the person I once knew, but there was nothing. She was gone. And with that, everything went dark. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share. See you in the next video.